You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
Welcome to the 1% Podcast. We have an amazing guest for you guys today.
Today on the show, we have Darren. Darren is 48 years old and was diagnosed with clear renal cell carcinoma. Prior to his diagnosis, Darren was a veteran in the Air Force. Darren is a veteran in the Air Force. He's currently a recreation specialist at a VA facility. Darren, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. So I'm excited to have you on the show. Again, I think it's a great perspective to have, just from the chat we've had before, like your perspective of your diagnosis and all the past things in your life, man. I think today's going to be a great episode. Tell the audience today, why do you think it's important for you to share your story with them?
Well, I think for the reason I want to share my story is because I want to be able to help and maybe, put out there a perspective that might be a little bit different, with a lot of focus on the mental aspect of a cancer diagnosis, and then not only the physical recovery, but the mental recovery that comes after the diagnosis and treatment.
Absolutely. I think that's something that's, people try to address the physical side, but do a lot less towards the mental. What do you want people to take away from your story today?
Well, I would hope that people take away that, for me personally, that when I received the diagnosis, it was like everything as I knew it changed from that point on. And I think that what I'd like people to take away is that I think once we accept that the person we were prior to our diagnosis and the person we are after our diagnosis are 2 different people, that it's a lot easier to manage and navigate through all this.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, let's get started. So tell us a little bit about your life prior to your diagnosis.
Well, just the Cliff Notes version. I grew up in Virginia, just like anybody else, normal, kind of small town living, sports, friends, the whole deal. Went into the military right after high school, like a lot of people in my area did, and, did my time in the military, was honorably discharged, came back to my community, lived in several different parts of Virginia, got into my career, which was marketing and sales in the beer business, but over time I developed a little bit of a substance abuse problem, to say the least. And, without getting into the gory details, several attempts at rehab, I was using drugs, I was drinking too much, it really cost me my family, it cost me homes, the cliches that happens to everybody. And at 40 years old, finally, May 16th of 2010 was the last drink or drug I took. And just this past May, I just celebrated 8 years of clean and being clean and sober.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So, yeah. And it's one of the things I wear with the greatest pride is that I'm still clean and sober every day. And because I know what a struggle that is, but also when the cancer diagnosis came in March, I was even more proud of myself for being clean and sober, because I was able to face this demon, face this monster with a clear head and all my thoughts where they should be, and not wandering off and trying to numb it. I just, hit it head on.
Can you imagine having to face this diagnosis and still battle the drug addiction, the alcohol addiction?
Absolutely not. I can tell you that when I was in it, I thought it, I was managing it. But as I look back on it now, I don't know how I survived it. And I think a lot of people who come out of that world understand exactly what I'm saying. It's a rough way to live. And still to this day, I sometimes look back on it with a lot of, obviously a lot of regret and a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. But, I was meant to go through those things so I can use that part of my story to help others now, which I do. because I can always share my story with somebody who's going through the same thing. And a lot of times that's what helps people turn the corner, is somebody who's went through it. And that's why I'm on your podcast as well.
I love the way you just accept responsibility for that and move forward. I think that's amazing. I think that's something great that people can take away from this. So prior to your diagnosis, how was your health? Were you in pretty good shape, or what was it going on?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a personal trainer, certified personal trainer. I'm very involved in athletics and sports and a very active person. A couple of years ago, I had some cholesterol problems, so I changed my diet and got my weight down. Actually lost about 40 pounds. I was in decent shape then, but I just became much leaner, very conscientious about my body, probably the best shape I've ever been in, and that even goes back to my military days. Feeling great, not a drinker, eating well, doing I have my one cheat day a week. I know I mentioned this before. I always mention it because I think it's valuable to people who are trying to lose weight, is to have one cheat day a week. But I was pretty health conscious, obviously working out 5 days a week, doing all the right things, as they say. And then boom,
Yeah. Crazy news out of the blue. Tell us about the day and what kind of led up to you actually going to the doctor and finding out that you had cancer.
Well, as I was telling you, I do a lot of sports and fitness stuff. And one of the things I do is I teach what we call here hardcore ab class. I teach it to a lot of our younger veterans and other folks, staff members as well. So it is a very intense ab class, and I pulled a muscle in it. I recognized it as soon as I did it, but being stubborn like I am, I avoided it, thought it would go away. I did heat. I did this. I did that. But after about 3.5 weeks, it had not went away. And then a couple of people asked me to play basketball. During a snowstorm, we were kind of locked in a gym for a while. And, I was kind of overseeing the gym and so forth. And so I ended up playing some basketball and aggravated the injury. This was on a Wednesday. So the next day I decided I'm going to the ER because I knew what the injury was because I've had this type of thing before. I went into the ER and told him, hey, I've got this pulled muscle. I'm concerned it's a tear. It could develop into a hernia, all that thing. I want you to scan me. I want you to do a scan to see how bad the tear is. So after a little bit of debating with them, they finally went ahead and scanned me. And then it changed. They came in and I knew something was up when the nurse wouldn't look at me. The doctor came in and said, well, you were right. You do have a slight torn muscle. Oh, by the way, we have what's called an indirect finding on your right kidney. And he handed me a piece of paper. And here's where it gets a little blurry for me, because after I read what was on this piece of paper, I don't remember anything else he said, really. The piece of paper, went over every organ, and it went over the torn muscle. And when it got to the right kidney, it said comprehensive 8-centimeter mass compatible with renal cell carcinoma spotted on right kidney. After that, I didn't hear anything else and it said possible malignancy, further evaluation required, or whatever it said, examination required. So that's what and this was at 2 a.m. on a Friday night at the ER when I was given this piece of paper. So and then I was sent home. Going home. And so from that point on, everything in my world changed from that very moment.
Wow. So you said everything was kind of a blur. Once everything slowed down, you had a chance to actually digest what happened. What kind of fears and feelings did you have about, having cancer or possibly having cancer?
Well, I think this is something we all can relate to. We only know the word cancer. We don't know the different types. As a general rule, until we have a certain type, then we know everything about it. You know what I mean? But for me, the fears I had was, oh my God, I'm going to die. That's it. That's it. How long do I have? I started thinking about events that I had later, like something I had to do in August or something I had to do. Am I even going to be there? So it was the catastrophic. That's it. That's the end of it. So I immediately started getting my benefits straight for, the children, all these type of things. So I went right to the worst case scenario, and I was not ashamed to admit I was petrified. I was petrified because the other thing that hit me was friends and family that I had seen go through cancer and what they had went through. And I was like, oh my God, that's going to be me. That's exactly what I thought. And that was what it just immediately tripped the emotions of two things for me: fear and fear of the process. Do you know what I mean? Fear of the process about what was to come. And so a somewhat fatalistic view is, oh my God, I have cancer. And then the second part of it was the practical part of me. I got to get this in order. I got to get that in order, and that's what I did. And actually that probably kept my sanity in those early couple of weeks.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a specific question. Just thinking about, your past and then to this. So, you hear the words cancer, and again, I think that's something we all think, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. When am I going to die? You start Googling everything and, seeing when you're going to die and how long you got and all these other things. Can you compare, like, were there points in your past where, you were struggling with the addictions and everything else does there anything compare to, like, maybe thinking you were going to die back then comparing to thinking you were going to die when you found that you had cancer?
Yes, I would say it's a fair comparison. It's a little different in some ways, and I'll give you an example. When you're kind of living that way and you're doing things you shouldn't be doing, you're drinking too much, you're taking pills, you're kind of living on the edge all the time, and life and death becomes blurry. Life and death is it's like, in some ways you're apathetic because your mind is so altered that you don't care. But you do feel like you're living with a death sentence because you're in a vicious cycle that you cannot get out of. It's similar, but this was different. With drugs and alcohol, like I said, you're apathetic. You almost don't care. You're still doing it until you get treatment. With this, I wanted to live. You know what I mean? I wanted to be healthy. I felt like I was healthy. This was not, quote unquote, self-inflicted. But it did trip some of the same things. It was like, because many times when I was using and drinking and all these things back in the day, I would just think, for a lack of a better term, screw it. I don't care if I wake up. Or am I going to wake up? I'm never going to get out of this. So yes, it did trip some of the same type of things.
That's interesting to hear you say that. I was wondering, just based off our conversation before about the correlation between those two. Thanks for sharing that. So, now that you found out you've got cancer, you had your freak out moments, you're trying to get everything in order. Tell us a little bit about your scans or your treatment or what the doctor said going forward for you. Like, what was your diagnosis and treatment plan once you figured everything out?
Well, the scan started immediately, and that, and of course, we all know that in and of itself is probably one of the most stressful pieces of everything. Scan and wait. Now, I was very lucky that I got results very quickly because I was being treated at the very hospital I work at. So, and each day it was just more and more information. Well, your lungs are okay, but, this, that, and the other. So it was very stressful. Scanxiety, I guess, would be the way. I've recently read an article about that, about the anxiety with scans. And that was at the beginning, so what are they going to find? Because once they tell you it's in you, then you think it's everywhere. Oh my God, my foot hurts. Do I have cancer there too? My arm hurts. It's really irrational thinking. I never felt a pain. I was asymptomatic. I had no pains. But as soon as they told me I had cancer, then I started feeling all these symptoms that I'd read about on Google. So it's definitely psychosomatic. All of a sudden I had flank pain when I didn't have it before. All of a sudden, this, that, and the other was going on. So for me, once they set the treatment plan, then things started changing for me because the treatment plan was pretty simple. I was scanned, and then I was referred to a surgeon, and the initial treatment with me was going to be removing the kidney. That is the way this cancer is treated, and then they decide from there what else is going to go on based on the pathology of the cancer itself. So for me, that's when things started changing. I remember the days, like my first appointment was April 6th, and my first appointment was April 6th where I met the doctor, and I came in with, I think, maybe 20 questions I asked him. And then my next appointment was April 17th, which was pre-op. And then April 30th was surgery and so forth. It just kept going like that. So I had all these appointments. So as I told you when we spoke before, I kind of view everything like a sporting event. So once I had all these dates in front of me and this plan laid out, I prepared for it like I would a sporting event. I did what they told me to do. I got things in line. I planned for what it was going to be like going to surgery, what it was going to be like coming out of surgery, what my goals were coming out of surgery to be up and moving again, because I'm a big believer in motion is medicine, and these type of things. So once that started, my course of treatment started, it was basically going right towards surgery. And then after surgery, we did the follow-up. And I met an oncologist joined my team, and I'm very fortunate in the sense that I do not have to do any chemo at this point. My right kidney was removed on April 30th. And that, at this point, is they have dubbed me in full remission. I have to get scanned every 3 months for the next couple of years. I believe my first big scan is coming up a month from today, actually. So, but at this point, my treatment was surgery, and then, of course, a nephrologist being on my team to help me manage my remaining kidney and so forth.
So as you're going through your surgery and you start talking to your family and your friends about what's going on for you, what kind of advice did you get, or I say good and bad advice, did you get from your friends and family members knowing that you were going through this?
Well, my closest friends and family members were fantastic. They were reading more about the type of cancer than I was, and they were coming back saying, if you're going to get one, this is the one, that type of thing. They were being very positive. After my first day, I wouldn't read anything else on Google because I would self-diagnose myself, and I just had to stop that. So I just stopped. But my friends and family, they gave advice about staying positive, all the things that friends and family do. And some of my, there were people in the circle of people that I hang out with that would do things like tell me a diet they read about on, some website, or they heard on NPR or something, things like that. That's not what I was ready to talk about at that point, but for the most part, everybody was very encouraging. It's almost a hopeless feeling because, normally I'm the alpha male in the group. I'm the guy that's, come in and, like the team captain, they would say. But everybody was almost treating me like, I needed to be babied, and I had to nip that in the bud a little bit because, but otherwise everybody was great. They were very supportive, and the people that were closest to me are what helped get me through it.
Gotcha. Did you get any kind of unhelpful advice or comments while you were going through everything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. I don't know if I mentioned this last time I talked to you. I think because I know I did mention this to you before, once I was diagnosed, and because I'm known at my job because I teach a lot of different classes and stuff, I decided I was going to put out there what was going on with me to control the narrative about me. I didn't want people to say, oh, why is he not here at work today, or, whatever. So, but when I would tell somebody, well, I'm going to be off for a little while, or the class is not going to be going on, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer. The look they give you, it's like they're almost like looking at you and they turn their head like, bless your heart, goodbye, that type of look. That's one thing that stands out to me. Mm-hmm. But, people like you said, I know we had talked about this. Oh, my granddaddy died from that, when you tell them that. Or the worst that was said to me was 2 days prior to surgery, I was trying to get in a round of golf to keep my mind occupied, and I was playing, and I was telling one of the guys I play with about the surgery. It was laparoscopic, that it was minimally invasive, blah, 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 and I'm pretty fit. I don't got to worry about a big incision, all these things. And he said, oh, yeah, I worked with a guy who had a gallbladder surgery like that. He didn't make it through surgery. I'm like, I said, I'm going to surgery in less than 48 hours, and you're telling me this. That kind of thing, I think that kind of thing stands out that people said. That was probably the oddest and most insensitive thing anybody said to me.
All right. If you could, for people listening now that maybe don't have cancer, what would you recommend them saying to someone who does have cancer?
What can I, can I just listen? What can I do? Not bringing me all the advice, not bringing me all the cures, not bringing me all the stats. Sometimes you just need to listen, because as I mentioned before, I'm very lucky that the physical parts of this have not been difficult for me at all. And I view the people that are going through the chemo and the much more intensive physical treatment. I mean, they're so courageous and such fighters, and I'm very, very fortunate I didn't have to do that. The mental part for me has been brutal, and to this day, I mean, I'm still talking to somebody about it. So I think that people who do not have cancer or do not really understand what it's like to get that diagnosis, when they reach out to somebody, they need to be empathetic, sympathetic, but not overbearing. I'm here for you. That works, because somebody like me, I'm going to talk when I'm ready to talk. And sometimes I just need to vent about my feelings. I don't need to hear has it spread to your lymph nodes? You're lucky. I don't need to hear that stuff. What I need to hear is you're there for me. And my friends were like that. My golfing buddies back in Virginia literally brought a stuffed kidney for me. They said, well, now you got both kidneys. You can't use it as an excuse on the golf course. Sense of humor. You know what I mean? Sense of humor is good. Just be there be what the person who's going through it needs. Don't be what you think they need. Be what they actually need.
No, I couldn't agree more. I always feel like you should treat people how they want to be treated instead of maybe how you want to be treated. So it's good that your friends kind of understand who you are and can take that into consideration. Because lots of times when people ask you questions, they're asking, I would say not intentionally, but they're asking for more of a selfish reason in a way, like so they can know the information, but they should be more concerned about the person who has it and, be sensitive to who they are and how they, express themselves. So.
Yeah, I mean, little things like I had some friends that got me an orange bracelet because orange is the color for kidney cancer awareness, and I'm a big University of Virginia fan, which their primary color is orange. So we made a big thing out of that, and that was the kind of stuff that I liked. And then, I would just call my buddies up just to vent. And it wasn't like they were directing the conversation. I was, but it would just be venting. And then they would say things, and the people in my life would say things like, yeah, once they take this out, you're very healthy. They were always positive. They were always, and still to this day, are very positive. And it's made me comfortable enough to talk about the mental aspect of this and how after my oncology appointment on June 6th, that kind of cloud of depression and survival guilt and all that stuff kind of set in on me.
Absolutely. So Darren, tell us about these pivotal moments. We all have them during our battles. So after we find out what's going on, there comes a point or several points or several specific things that happen. And I feel like sometimes we can miss those if we don't intentionally look for them or pay attention. But tell us about either a moment or maybe a collection of moments where you decided, hey, I'm not going to be a victim of circumstance. With this cancer, I'm going to overcome this, and I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to fight towards this and do everything I possibly can to overcome this.
Well, I think there's a couple. I know that last time I'd actually forgot to mention one to you. Very early in the process for me, I had to go get one of multiple scans. Of course, we all know about this. This was later in the evening, so there was only one person at the radiology department, and she took me back. We did the scan, and while I was waiting to do the scan, I just kind of lost it emotionally because it had been building up and building up and building up. And I think this was my chest lung x-ray or whatever it was. I can't even remember. But I was like, geez, another scan now. I've got to wait. And all that. And this woman saw the emotion on my face and came out and sat down and talked to me for a few minutes and started telling me about, the positive things that I was going to get great treatment from the place they were sending me, and that so far it looked like, quote, it hadn't spread, that type of thing. She put me in a good place. And I think one of the big turning points for me was, I know we mentioned this before, it was a nurse who provided me with some reading when I was meeting her pre-op and I was really in a dark spot, freaking out, about this, that, and the other. And she provided me some reading about several different things about, living after cancer and, these type of things. And, at the time I thought, man, she's just trying to shut me up. But it was a turning point because I ended up going back and reading what she had told me to read and what she had presented to me. And it actually put me in from that point on, I was like, okay, it's on now. So literally from that point on, by the time I got to surgery, I was so chomping at the bit because I was like, I'm going to be the quickest guy to get out of this hospital due to my fitness level. I'm going to be up and walking in one day. I'm going to be back in the gym in 4. I had a plan at that point. And that was for me, some of the turning points. And I think another turning point came for me, and this is not necessarily the most positive turning point, but I knew going into surgery I wasn't going to be a victim. It was what it was. I wasn't going to fret it. It was either going to, once the pathology came back, I'd find out more, blah, blah, blah. But when I went to oncology and they read the pathology and said I was, quote, in remission, I had a moment right then that the oncologist told me, he said, there's no need worrying about the scans. that you're going to have to do every 3 months because they're going to be what they're going to be. And I remember thinking, walking out there going, he's exactly right. What does me thinking about those scans on September 6th going to do to every day between June 6th and September 6th? It's just going to fill it with stress and anxiety. And I just decided I'm not going to live my life in 3-month increments. I'm going to live my life, and the scan's just going to become a part of my life as opposed to my life being revolving around those scans. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's when you step back and think about it, it's a very positive way to look at that. I know that's one of those things where all of us that are going to get scans, like I know for me personally, in the next month, I'm going to have them again. And you already started, it's like that month threshold. You're like, okay, now it's 4 weeks, now it's 3 weeks, now it's 2 weeks. Like it kind of builds up on you. And I think it's human nature to worry about things that you care about, but worrying about it's not going to make it any better or worse when it comes down to it and stuff. So I love that. And I also love what you said about the nurse being there to provide some information for you. I think it's amazing and just out of our mindset to comprehend how God puts certain people in our lives at the exact right time to give us exactly what we need, whether it's a call, a text, some information, just an ear to listen to, just to let us know that we're not alone. We can make it through this. And, we're going to have, those moments of doubt, but we don't have to stay in those moments. And I think that's what, you're a big preparation guy. I can just tell by listening to you, and you're going to do everything you can to prepare. But sometimes when you have those weak moments, like again, God provides those people that come into our life at that right time and could be out of our life moments later, but just get us to the next step. So I think that's absolutely amazing. I think everybody listening to this, be really intentional on those moments where you feel your absolute worst, or you feel like, you're going to worry yourself to death thinking about the what ifs, and be on the lookout for those moments, because they will arrive when you least expect it, and they'll arrive exactly when you need it lots of times. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, I think one other thing that benefited me is everybody knows me. Like, my friends obviously know the type of person I am, and they know that I'm a sponge for information. So they would tell me things, and like this nurse that gave me this information, she didn't know these things about me, but what it led to was me seeking more information, and led to articles, and then loved ones sending me articles about depression after a cancer diagnosis to help me understand why I was feeling so depressed, which I also think is a pivotal moment, because for me in mid-June, I start realizing, oh my gosh, I'm depressed. I recognize this feeling. I recognize this feeling because I lived with it when I was in addiction. I am depressed. Why? I should be feeling great that right now I'm beating cancer. No, what had happened was the person I was prior to my cancer diagnosis has died, and I have to mourn that person because now I'm a new person after that diagnosis. And I was given an article about that literally said that. It literally said many times we struggle with depression because we are mourning the person we were prior to diagnosis, and mortality is no longer abstract. And that sticks with me. Out of that whole article, I can't remember anything else, but I remember that. And like you said, that was just something that was presented to me that gave me a different way of looking at it. And so that's why when I do this podcast, one of the reasons I agreed to do it was because now I'm in this world. I'm in this world of cancer survivors and cancer fighters. But I also wanted to talk specifically about the mental part of this, because this really tripped a lot of my mental anxieties that I've lived with my whole life. And I think the number one thing in cancer treatment that's missing, that's lacking, we could talk about a lot of things about that again, but I think mental health needs to be involved in cancer treatment more than they are.
No, I couldn't agree more. So now that you're waiting on the scans in the next month or so, you touched on this just now. You said about the pre-cancer Darren versus the post-cancer Darren. And it's very interesting what you're saying about having to mourn the life of you pre-cancer and now, dealing or getting to know the new you. How has your life adjusted since you've kind of gotten out of that and you're starting to live life as the, post-cancer Darren?
Well, I can tell you I'm still learning, and to give a completely honest answer or a complete answer that breaks down every feeling would be, not accurate. I can tell you that I believe I appreciate things more. I'm going to take the time. Warren Zevon, the famous musician, said that when he was diagnosed with cancer, he was going to take time to enjoy every sandwich. That's the way I kind of look at it, because now I know. I've been told those words that could happen to me anytime. Before the pre-cancer me, I didn't think. We put that out of our mind. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen to me. Blah blah blah. And then when it does, it's there. So I think a couple of things that have changed for the better for me is that I hate to say it this way, but I'm more aware of my everyday life. For example, prior, I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and every day just kind of flies by. So I think this has slowed me down to kind of take in every day for the beauty that it offers, instead of life just going by in these fast cycles. So I'm trying to slow down and enjoy life a little bit more, whether that comes spending more time with family and friends, not working myself to the bone, making sure I take the time for myself. There's a lot of ways it's manifested itself. But I will say this, and it's something I didn't mention to you before. It is comparable to getting clean off when I got clean. When I first got clean and sober, I was happy to be clean and sober, but I kept wondering about the pre-clean and sober me, because I was always the life of the party. I was this, I was that. Could I ever live clean and sober? Blah, blah. And of course, over time, I developed into the post-sobriety Darren. I was a different person. I still went out and had fun. I just didn't, do all that stuff. So I think that's how I'm evolving now. I'm still fairly new into this. I'm still developing. So I think I finally have come to terms with the me that was prior to the diagnosis. And now I'm learning about the new me post-diagnosis. Each day I'm learning, by the way.
Yeah. What piece of advice would you give people listening today to help give them that 1% they need to take that hard right turn that you took and keep fighting and dealing with the post-cancer?
Well, I would say this. This is something I use a lot in my everyday life. I use it whether it be regarding anything. Be an active participant in your own recovery. The doctors have a lot of initials by their names. The doctors know a lot of stuff, but it's your body. So ask questions. Be involved in your treatment. They want to put you on this treatment. Ask why. Come study and come in with questions. Like I told you, when I came to the doctor, I came in with 20 questions every time. I don't know whether they loved me or hated me, because they thought I was a well-prepared patient, but I'm sure that I was also a patient that got on their nerves because I asked a lot of questions. But however, it's my body. It's so for me personally, that helped by taking an active role in my own treatment. And I really suggest that to people. Do not sit back don't be passive. Don't sit back on the chair while everybody else is talking about you. Be active. Jump up in the middle of it. Research, find out things, look into things that are going to benefit you, bring that to the table. I believe that when we are involved, we feel more important part of the process, and we feel like we have some control over what's happening to us. And I think that is hugely beneficial for everybody. And part of that, even some people may not be able to be that aggressive, but at least ask, talk, ask questions. Voice what is on your mind, whether it be to a doctor, to your husband, to your wife, to your friend, to anybody. Voice what is on your mind, because you never know how the response might help you through that moment.
There's a quote from Martin Luther King that says, you don't have to see the entire staircase to take the first step. And what you mentioned about not knowing where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what's going to happen, but taking the first step in gaining knowledge, asking questions, doing your own research, because the doctors are going to give you the information that they have, the advice, the recommendations, but you have to take the first step in being in control of the knowledge that you put into your head instead of just being given a bunch of information by different people.
Absolutely. Again, being an active participant in your own treatment, not a passive participant, not coming in. I'm not one that comes to the doctor and sits there and just am quiet. I made the oncologist, read every line of the pathology report to me, even though I didn't know what a lot of those words meant, because that's how it should be. We're working together. And it makes me feel like I'm involved, and it keeps me motivated. Now, that may not work for everybody. I'm saying what works for me. And what being active in your own treatment like you said, you're going on blind faith. You're taking steps not knowing where it's going sometimes, but it's better than not taking the step at all, and take the step. And sometimes it might not go exactly where you want, but you just get on another staircase.
There you go. Darren, I love your story, man. I know I've heard it a couple of times now, and each time we chat, I get something else. What I love about you as a person is I love your authenticity. You just get straight to the point, and your accountability as well too. Like, hey, look, this happens, stuff happens, and I need to make the adjustments. I need to prepare. I need to be in charge and control of everything I can control, which is not everything, but the things that I can control, I will take control of that. I will move forward. I will get the right information. I will have a positive attitude. I will eliminate all the negative things in my life. Like, those steps to me speak volumes about who you are as a person. And, a portion of this podcast and a majority of this is to celebrate, who you are as well too, because as you move forward, this is a badge of honor that you carry with you. It's not probably what you would have chosen for yourself, but this is part of your life story. And as you carry it along, I think if you continue to do what you're doing right now, no matter what the outcome is in the long run, you yourself will be affected, but there's thousands and thousands of other people that are going to be affected by your story, and in such a positive way, and be able to take all this information, or maybe just little things that you said, and apply it to their life. So I think that's absolutely amazing, man. I appreciate you sharing that, because that's what this is for. We need to hear that. We need these authentic, real stories to let us know that we're not alone. And then, there are people with very different backgrounds who have experienced something similar, and then we can all go through this together. So before go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say just one other thing about this. I had posted, and maybe this, on one of the support network sites, about, I believe that when I became clean and sober, it is my obligation to share my story, to try to help other people find sobriety. And that's what I do. Try to help people through my story. And many people in sobriety do that, obviously, not just me. So I'm not cornering the market. It's just something I feel like we're supposed to give back. I also feel the same way about this, because my cancer was detected early. And I believe that is a blessing, obviously, that it was found early. I believe that I'm supposed to be the voice for those who were not found early, and to share that story. I believe that I'm supposed to do that. I believe that that's why it was the way it was. And that's why I will do this stuff now, be in this community for the rest of my life.
Love it, man. Well, I like to finish the show with some personal things about you. A couple of questions that I like to ask each guest on the show to help give all of our listeners a snapshot of who you are. First question is, name a couple things that motivate you.
Trying to make people smile, trying to be a positive influence in people's life. I think that would be a couple of the things, and trying to be the best father that I can be. And in some ways, maybe, I guess, to try to live the second half of my life a lot better than I lived the first half of it.
Love it. Do you have any supplements or products that you would want to recommend for listeners that they should try?
No, I'm not a supplement guy. I'm not a supplement guy when it comes to fitness. I'm more of a, whole foods. I believe you just eat healthy. Again, I'm not knocking those type of things, but even in my profession, it's actually frowned upon to recommend supplements anyways. So I'm not a supplement person.
Any kind of healthy foods that you feel like our listeners could be consuming?
Well, stay away from the processed stuff. That's the only thing I can tell you. The processed foods are probably the worst thing in America. Processed foods are terrible, but try to eat fresher foods. And like I said, enjoy a cheat day once a week, whether it be like me, whether it's peanut butter ice cream and pizza, or whatever it is you like. But try to eat somewhat healthy. Get a balance of the proper balance of carbohydrates, protein, and the proper type of fat in your body. And I think I firmly believe it helps us reduce all kinds of other health issues. And when something like this comes up, it helps us through the process very quickly and better when you're in a fit and more physically fit and better shape place.
What's the last book you've read?
Oh, shoot. Michael Collins was the last book I read.
And what are 3 items you got on your bucket or life list that you want to accomplish going forward?
Well, I'm going to surf. I'm going to surf more different places. And this change, by the way, this bucket list thing changes for me all the time. So, because I always see something that I want to do. I want to go to like the Super Bowl or the Final Four, particularly if the University of Virginia is in the Final Four. I want to go to it. And one of them I'm actually getting ready to do. I'm going to play in the World Golf Amateur in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm actually playing 2 weeks from Monday. That is something that I'm going to be doing, and that's on my bucket list. So I'm actually already doing that in just a couple of weeks.
I love it.
You notice how it's all around sports for me, by the way.
I love it. So if there's anybody out there that can help Darren get to a Super Bowl or Final Four, just contact me and let me know, and I'll give you Darren's information.
Yeah, and I by the way, I do have a shirt now that says I only have one kidney. So when I play somebody in a sport and I beat them, I kind of show them that shirt just to talk a little trash in a subtle way about they just lost to somebody with only one kidney. You got to have a little fun with it.
I love it, man. Well, Darren, man, I enjoyed talking to you today. I think it's amazing. I love just hearing your story. Your impact's going to be tremendous to all the people listening. Appreciate you taking the time again today, and we'll finish up and we will catch you soon. Okay, buddy?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to OnePercentPodcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.